This is Gary Erickson, architect from Erickson G Architects. We're talking about drawings today, the second video in a series on how to draw like an architect. Now, I don't necessarily mean an architect of today. The scope goes back, Renaissance, beyond, anybody that drew by hand. So I'm talking about hand drawings here, generally speaking. And we're going to touch on computer drawings later on in a different playlist. But today we're all going to focus on drawings, and to remind you, we're going to go through these a couple at a time. I've got thousands of these things, so why not? And in the process of looking at these drawings, we'll expose what I feel is important in the drawing context. Okay, so getting into it here. This is a drawing, and you can see at the bottom who's done it and who has done it for. This is a drawing for HOK. Client is Emaar, and the place is Westside Marina. That's now Dubai Marina. This is an example of a drawing that's done in a day, and there's a day's research preceding it. So it's a nice tight experiment on how to pack a space with a classical kind of iconography from Islamic sources. It's an interesting thing to do because you get to look back at all the engravings, everything you can find on that period, that place, those people, and try and find some way of bringing it forward. A successful resolution. It happened very quickly. It got great response. Now what you're seeing here isn't the final drawing. This is the design sketch for the drawing. And I'm going to be showing you the final presentation, and this is it. This was done by Rand Patterson, that is a rendering artist, supreme watercolorist, who took my previous design here and did his best to transfer what he saw into his rendering. I think he got pretty well most of it in the time he had. It took him a week to do all this, and it was quite late hours, I think. And this was about a straight 8-hour day. So that's the proportion of drawing to painting that you're going to find in the old days before computers, the BC days, as I like to say. You can see a lot of setups here at the bottom, the river, the bridge, the displays, the carts with goods, the table, the balcony, the canopy, the store, the canopy, over the door, the brackets. I'm going to just whip out all the words for you. The mashrabiyah, which is these cages in the sky with lots of trellis work you can't see through, beautiful refined carvings, pointed arches, castellated wall types. That is like a shape that goes up and down, like on a castle, okay? At the top of parapets, sometimes shaped into interesting shapes. The central pavilion, a little more complicated. Here's a little rendering of it. It's obviously a feature, a focus on this design, which is a winding river that goes through the whole mall. This is actually a mall in the area right next to Dubai Marina, which was, a work, live area, but it needed a retail focus, of course, because, in that kind of climate, people love to be in an air-conditioned mall. There's not going to be much outside on the street level. Things are a bit, hot, okay, and bright, and sand storms in your face. It's not like it is here. It's quite different. So you always seek to be inside. So the inside wants to be warm and, well, not warm, what am I saying? Cool and warm colored, maybe, with water features and luxury and goods. And, typically the Dubai Mall experience is a little different. And all around the drawing, you're going to have the tags that's going to tell everybody what's going on. Right? So that is this concept sketch. It's a concept sketch for a drawing. It doesn't happen often because usually the person who draws it is the person who renders it. And sometimes you actually transfer your ideas to somebody else. Today, especially, where everything's done generally speaking, digitally, sometimes in China, there's a lot of pre-drawing that goes on to talk about what's going to happen later. That finishes this one. Let's move on to the next. Now this is a little bit of site planning. So you have this drawing here that is the ground level, and it cuts through all the uses. And this comes from a program, a general program, and a lot of urban designers have a great skill, and they can take uses and throw them on the ground and find interesting patterns, interesting urban patterns that they've seen before. There's a real art to it, like where are the intersections? How do cars get around? How do people interact with the ways cars get around? And this is a perfect example because you've got a mall in an interior block. It's got an interior walking path that's like a stream walking along to the water, and then you've got a highway that goes over it, but this is cut through so you can see the path and the road and everything all at once. Now here you're going to have what it looks from above, and this is the roof, this is the canopy. Now I'm not saying that this is a real pneumatic structure. This is done for planning purposes. You don't have to perfectly design everything at once. A lot of us use these things just because they're expedient. Later on, things get squared up and things get filled in and sophisticated by many, many designers, all the way to the very detailed designer who does their part in making it all happen. Everybody designs all the way through, best they can. What else can I say about this? It is, well, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on. On the left, you've got the edge of a development that's phase one. It's a residential development, a condo development. I don't want to get too into it because it's going to take me an hour, and this is just about drawing. So I think you get the gist of how to quickly put something down, how to indicate uses using simple colors, and how to have a palette of parking spaces and textures. Like this is a 60-meter wide 20, 20, and 20 parking strip, and you just lay those parking strips around. They're very efficient, and this is how it works with two sides and a central aisle. That's how it works. And there's ramps and ins and outs. It's just an art form. Okay. So the overall is just to show what it looks like with the roof on. Now moving on to a whole different world, and we're going to end here because it's getting a bit long. Moving on to interiors, which is part of the game. Now it's not an interior rendering that I would do for an interior design necessarily, but this is part of an overall planning scheme. Now you can do an interior that talks about what does it look like looking through the windows at what you've just designed in plan. So I'm going to leave this here and maybe go on a little more general subjects about design. I'm not going to talk about basic drawing issues. Those are covered really well on the internet by different people. How to hold a pencil, how to draw a line, how to see through layers of paper. I mean, this is introductory and important things, but we're not talking about that thing here. This is really about on the ground doing the job the way it generally used to be done in the United States more, because they have design architects there. They don't necessarily have design architects here as much, because the firms here are smaller and they have less specialization, generally speaking, because the industry is 1/10, of course, because it's 1/10 the population. So this is that kind of experiment. I'm not going to talk about the basic design things, like how to draw lines on a piece of paper. Maybe later on, if you guys want, I'll do a little bit of a show, a video on just a time lapse me ripping through some drawings. Maybe that would be interesting for people to see, because I've had people watch me do this and they just look away after 5 minutes going, oh, is this all that's happening? Because it's not, it takes a long time. It takes a whole day. Nobody's got a day to look at me draw something. But I can time lapse quickly through it. So that's the sort of more focused content going forward. Now, in the end, you can see I've screwed up my video here. What am I doing? I've got, oh yeah, that's more like it. I'm trying to get my game together, my audio game. Not easy to do. And at the moment, maybe you've got some clues for me. Maybe you've got some clues on how to set this up, because it's been a couple of days of how do I get these waveforms to happen? How do I plug up my banana so that it's not screwing up? And how do I compress this thing so it sounds to me like it sounds to you? So this is what the inside of my head sounds like when I'm talking. So at least that's clear. On the internet, when it's loaded up on your phone, it should be clear. Tell me if it's not clear and I'll adjust some sliders here. Like this one here should be forward so you can check it out. Okay, everybody, thank you for coming, and I'll see you next time.